Raid Reads Books podcast is a weekly podcast aired every single Thursday, distributed by Buzzsprout. All music credit goes to Kevin McLeod from Income Tech. Just a quick announcement, if you are an Irish author new on the scene and you would like your book reviewed or discussed on the Raid Reads Books podcast, please email raidreads@outlook.ie. This episode may contain spoilers. Enjoyed episode 1, season 1. Happy Thursday, everyone! How are you? You're very welcome to the first official episode of the Raid Reads Books podcast. I'm your host, Raid, and to kick off the beginning of the series, I'm going to be talking about a lesser-known modern classic, The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivey. How this isn't being taught in schools is beyond me. Now, I want you to know where your information is coming from when you're listening to me. So just a little bit about myself, very quickly, I promise. I've been a part-time freelance writer, specialising in proofreading and copy editing for 2 years now, just going on, and a book blogger for just under a year. I read a lot of books, and along with those side hustles, I'm a full-time undergraduate student studying arts in NUI Galway, where I do IT, English and psychology. If that wasn't enough for me, I'm also a part-time undergraduate student with the Open University, another arts degree studying arts and humanities, creative writing and philosophy. That's a lot of literature. I'm currently doing an internship with Tribes Press Publishing. That's an independent publisher in Galway City, and I'll have more about Tribes Press towards the end of my review. I'm also a mother of 2, so you're gonna get our favourite storytime reads for the little readers, which is my favourite time of the night because I have the kids used as an excuse to read fantasy books and fairy tales. Now, none of that immensely matters because reading tastes and recommendations are also subjective, but so that you have a little understanding on the type of person giving you the suggestions and book news, events, I just said I'd throw that in there because we come from a time where primary and secondary sources are overlooked a bit too much. So I said, at least you know. And if you love what you learn, you love what you do. And if we can, we do. I'd also love to hear from all of you. That's what this is all about for me. It's sparking conversations and sharing ideas. So if you have any recommendations, I am always down for a new book, or you'd like to add to my reviews, maybe you thought I missed something, email me at raidreads@outlook.ie. Also, as mentioned in the earlier announcements before the episode started, I'm also looking for Irish authors new on the scene. If you'd like me to review your book and then discuss it on my podcast, please email me at raidreads@outlook.ie. Now, that's all out of the way. Let's get to the first official book recommendation, The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivey, a modern classic. Right, lads, ladies, what makes a classic a classic? Specific canonised classics like The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien and The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, I hope I'm pronouncing that right now, they both sold over 150 million books, still counting. Then you have the ever-popular Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, over 107 million sold, still counting. The Hobbit, over 100 million. And The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis, 85 million plus books sold, still counting. But what do all these stories have in common? Well, one of the many writing courses that I've done, and possibly the most expensive, but had great value, was with the novelry. And they broke it down into 3 elements. Call them methods or techniques to begin with. And that's what the novelry suggested these classic canonised books had in common. The first element is the extreme situation. So obviously everything is to the extreme. You got extreme locations, extreme landscapes, extreme dilemmas, conflict, anger, murder afoot. An example of a different twist to this particular element was the Bourne identity, and the Bourne identity consisted of an extreme situation suddenly matched by an extraordinary person, and that was the difference. They took an old method and completely turned it around, merged it, if you will, with an extraordinary person. The next element is the element of magic, and the novel's description of this is a story of magic is usually a tale of transformation, a story powered by the semi-divine, superhuman or magical qualities of a character or event in the book. Then lastly, there's the walk in my shoes technique, which is possibly my favourite element in any book. And this is where The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivey comes in, and she does it so well. This is a quick synopsis that I'm reading straight from the back of the book. Alaska, the 1920s. Jack and Mabel have staked everything on a fresh start in a remote homestead. But the wilderness is a stark place, and Mabel is haunted by the baby she lost many years before. When a little girl appears mysteriously on their land, each is filled with wonder, but also foreboding. Is she what she seems, and can they find room in their hearts for her? Financial Times has said this is a story about finding love in unexpected places full of fire and ice. The Times said it's the harsh beauty of the landscape that gives this stunning verse novel its unique shape and atmosphere. Sunday Express has said it's exceptional, deserves to melt millions of hearts, and Marie Claire has said it's magical, heartbreaking and gorgeous. I'm going to go with that last one. Right, so as mentioned, this was Eowyn Ivey's debut novel. It was published in 26 different languages and became an international bestseller. Now, I'm not sure about the following awards, I've never actually looked them up, but she did receive the International Author of the Year category in the 2012 National Book Awards, and was a finalist for the 2013 Pulitzer Prize. I'm sure they're prestigious. Right away, Eowyn has the extreme landscape down. Set in 1920s Alaska, ice-covered rivers, snow-covered mountains, forests, and this is actually because she's from Alaska. She stated herself that she had always wanted to write a book that was set in the Alaskan plains, and after she randomly stumbled upon an old Russian fairy tale called The Little Daughter of the Snow by Arthur Ransom, she dropped the project that she had been working on for 5 years and then started with The Snow Child. Early in chapter 1, we are introduced to Mabel, an older woman experiencing an apparent death wish, as she's contemplating ending everything, risking her life sliding on the ice. Not even sliding, she's not careful as she's walking deliberately, and we're being shown the burden on her shoulders weighing down from under her boots. You're wondering, is the book going to start off with a suicide? Is the narration going to be a spirit's narration of what should have been? Is the ice going to crack from under the fragile surface? Herself and her husband Jack have farmed the stark, grit-bearing homestead for a while now, and we regularly feel beneath their boots or their cold feet within their boots. Again, this is the walk in my shoes technique being used symbolically. There's a source of sadness revealed within Jack. He put one foot in front of the other and walked without seeing or feeling. Have you ever just walked around empty? You're not looking where you're going, but you know you're not going to be walking into things. Not that you're paying attention, it's like your body's on autopilot. Things do pick up, and this is where the magic really starts after the couple has a magical evening during Mabel's playful mischief, and she even notes during her play that herself and Jack haven't done anything like this in the longest time. It's been so long that even poor old Jack is looking at her like, what are you at, woman? And this is after he gets a pelt of a snowball. So Snowball fights on, and before they die of a death of the cold in bloody Alaska, Jack starts to make a snow child. Mabel sees this and then runs inside to get some personalised items like a scarf made by her sister. Needless to say, after a light snowfall and play, the night ended well, good man Jack. Long story short, a while later, their snow child is no longer there, but we're shown footsteps that lead from where the snow child used to be to the forest. Footsteps that lead to the forest, I should say. And now we're introduced to Faina, who is a beautiful feral child that enters their lives, and this is where we kick off. Eowyn has mastered the combination, what I feel is reality meets magic. Like, not so much a combination of the two, but it's merging. You're always guessing and second guessing yourself as to whether Faina is the embodiment of the snow child, created through Mabel and Jack's love, as Mabel believes, or whether she's just this absolutely amazing wildling, the forest dweller born and bred. She has a fox friend as well that follows her everywhere she goes, and I see her as the nature to Mabel's nurture. She's not so easily coaxed into getting closer to the farm. The couple notice her, and there's constant conversations going on about her. Who is she? Where is she from? Where does she come from? And you can really see the nature that this girl is. She is nature, from her frosty hair to her ice blue eyes and her feline hunting skills that are second to none. This child is like 9 and she's a complete and utter badass. She leaves these little gifts at the door eventually to Mabel and Jack, but it's Jack that actually wins her over in the end. Jack goes into town and he retrieves this little doll, and he just leaves it there, and he starts shouting aloud that he's just leaving it there, but he's not engaging with the child whatsoever. And slowly but surely, Faina gets closer and closer to the doll, and that's when she starts to get close. You can see them being formed as a family, a very different family, because the sad thing is every spring she disappears, and this worries them every single year because they've gotten close. They're now a family, and they've made promises to Faina that they would never try and keep her. She is nature. She will be free. She's an animal at the end of the day, and they have to respect her wishes, otherwise she would feel that is a betrayal. But they do sort of get used to that setup, and every year they try to make it as special as possible, and they're always so excited to see her coming until she starts to get older, and that's when things change. What I haven't mentioned is that there is also another family up closest. They're only neighbours. Now, I'm not going to get into too much detail of the relationship that they have with the family. It's actually quite nice, but I do want to talk about their youngest son, Garrett. We'll quickly tell you that Mabel has tried to talk about Faina to this family, however they didn't believe her, and Jack didn't actually stick up for her, which causes more problems down the line. There's a moment in the book when Garrett is out on a hunt, and he loves being in the woods. He's a very isolated, he's not an isolated child, they're isolated anywhere where they live, but he's very much within himself, very introverted. He likes his hunting, that's his thing. He knows the forest like the back of his hand. And when he sees this swan, he thinks that he sees something else. Then he starts focusing on the swan again, only to notice there's this face, there's this girl, and suddenly he realizes that this is the girl that has been spoken of for years, but nobody ever seen her except Jack and Mabel, which is another element in the story that I don't want to get into because I don't want to ruin it for you. Next thing, out of nowhere, he's looking at this girl watching the swan and sees her taking out a knife. He's doubting this girl every 2 seconds. He's like, no way, that the swan is going to cut her with the beak. But she wrestles with the swan, and it's effortlessly, I should say. And he gets a lovely glimpse of her slitting the swan by the neck. He's absolutely petrified of this mystical being because he's seen her as an imaginary little girl, as she was when she first arrived on the scene with Mabel and Jack, and now he's just witnessed like an animalistic natured teenager killing another animal with her bare hands. Even he is unable to do that. So Gareth legged it. Gareth got the fright of his life and legged it. But the lovely thing is, we eventually see a love story between Gareth and Faina. And I'm going to leave it right there and give you my overall conclusion of this book. I will say that the ending absolutely broke my heart, because not only do you see nature itself, you see the mother, the father, and the lover, and creation. There's a lot of creation themed in this novel. Sometimes creations end, and they end so symbolically that you won't be able to reread the book again. Honestly, the love in this book and the sadness combined, it absolutely broke my heart. Between a mother's yearning after grief because she lost a child, both her and Jack finally gained a child of which they couldn't keep because she was so freeing. She was just unapologetically herself. And if that is the theme of any Raid Read recommendation that you hear from here, any female lead of an author or a character, it's going to be that she is unapologetically herself. And I absolutely admire Faina. Throughout this whole thing, I'm hoping that I'm pronouncing her name correctly. I'm sort of vulnerable now because my voice is now out there, and I could be getting the names completely wrong for all I know, but that's how I see her. That's how I've been pronouncing it the whole time. And she is an absolutely inspiring character. When we think of characters like her, it's always full of mysticism and mystery, nature, chaotic as it can be something so beautiful, and this novel is just so beautiful. Now that's the first official book recommendation made by your host, Raid. Here is some book events and news. So folks, we have a new writer on the scene. His name is Lorcan O'Connor, and he is the author of Binge. And this is also his debut book, a fiction based on a man left delusioned and angry in the wake of recovering from a manic episode, Michael, who attempts to find solace in self-destruction and rebellion against the superficial world. As death, betrayal and hedonism cause Michael's mental state to unravel again, we gain a jarring insight into the mentally ill, the rape victims and the survivors of violence, unnoticed by our society and left to renew the binge. A gritty tale of drugs, depression and delusion perfectly encapsulates Ireland's new lost generation. The book launch for Binge with Lorcan O'Connor is on Friday the 13th. If you want any more information about this virtual book launch, please visit or contact www.tribespress.com. To purchase Binge, please go to www.tribespress.com/shop. And that is it from me today. Holy crap! That's the first episode done. Wow. Alright. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much for downloading and subscribing. I really appreciate it, and just a huge thanks from me, Raid. Alright guys, take care. You have been listening to the Raid Reads Books podcast, hosted by Raid. Join me next week where I'll be discussing self-help books, what I'm debunking and why, and what I think are worth a read. I'll also be giving recommendations on book gift sets for your children this Christmas. Thanks for listening.